Good morning and welcome to Stories by Grandma. To understand my story idea, I think I need to tell you about how I got started in family history. So the title of my story today is Where It All Began. I have always been interested in family history, and when my husband and I started our family, it became even more important to know where we came from. He told me his knowledge of his family and how he supposedly was related to Davy Crockett. And here is his story.
I'm Ted. I'm Grandma's husband. Back about 65 years ago, there was a show on TV that Walt Disney put out, and about once a month he had stories of Davy Crockett. My dad at the time told me that we were related to Davy Crockett. He thought he knew how it went because he had a great-grandmother who was a Crockett, and her uncle was the Davy Crockett. And he was pretty sure that's how it went. Well, over the course of time, we eventually figured it out that he was right, and we were able to prove it to him. But all that story is going to be on Grandma telling stories. So this is just my little two cents worth about being related to Davy Crockett, how this story started.
I told Ted before we went telling everybody or our children about being related to Davy Crockett, we had to find out if it was true. My father-in-law would go back to Illinois and Indiana on trips where his family was from and bring back boxes full of scrapbooks, photos, and written information about his family. I found it all very interesting, and he said his grandmother was a Crockett and was a cousin to Davy of Alamo fame, and that their fathers were brothers. Wow, could this be true? I had to find out. So I got started. Back in the early years of genealogy searching, it had to be done the hard way, and there were no such things as internet or personal computers, no Ancestry.com, no FamilySearch.org. We had a wall in our house that I would put little pieces of paper with names and dates of people on it and connect it with yarns, little pieces of yarn, so to show all how it was connected and who was who. I had to go to libraries to look up information and take lots of notes. I searched and searched and searched in libraries and could not find anything about Davy Crockett, and I didn't know who his parents were or anything, no siblings, anything. He was a mystery. So I kind of gave up for a while. And during this time, my mom told me of a cousin she had in Billings, Montana, and that he knew something about his family on my mom's side of the family. My dad told me that I didn't need to know any of the information, that it wouldn't do me any good to go into the past to look things up. So I thought, well, I'll just contact my mom's cousin, Glenn, in Billings, Montana, and he told me that he had had a published book of the family of the Holsingers, and the Holsingers was my mom's grandma side of the family. So Glenn told me that I could borrow his book, but he needed it back. And when I got the book in the mail, it was fun to look through, and it gave me some ideas of where to go. But that is another story that I will tell you at a later date. Anyway, back to Ted's story about Davy Crockett. In 1977, a show called Roots came on TV. And at the end of each episode, there was a little blurb about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints having family history libraries that you could go to all over the country and find out about your family. We searched out the church and found a library near us, but we didn't find anything about Davy. My father-in-law said he wanted to know if we ever found out if the connection was true. So in 1986, we moved our family from Arkansas to northern Utah, where the church's headquarters is and the main family history library is located. I thought that if the answer was out there, we would find it in that library. I started looking in the library's collection of Crockett family books. James Brooks was my husband's great-grandfather, and I knew if I could find the name Brooks in the index of one of these books, that I would find the connection. So I found a book called Crockett Cousins. I looked in the index and there was the name of James Brooks. And it was the correct James Brooks, with all the correct dates and information that I had. I had found the connection. James Brooks' mother was Margaret Jane Brooks. My husband's great-great-grandmother was a Crockett. She was born the 6th of February in 1828 in Clinton County, Kentucky, to James Martin and Martha Jane Crouch Crockett. James Martin is a son of Robert Crockett. Robert's brother, John Wesley, was Davy's father. So John Wesley and Robert are brothers, and I had found the connection. It wasn't exactly like my father-in-law has said, because James Martin was Margaret's father, not Robert. Robert was her grandfather, and John Wesley was his brother, who was Davy's father. So she died in March of 1906 and is buried in the Franklin Cemetery near Paris, Illinois. And that is the same cemetery that my father-in-law is buried in. Before my father-in-law passed away in 1992, we were able to tell him that he was correct, and so he knew the connection was true. My husband Ted is a first cousin, 5 generations removed from Davy Crockett of Alamo fame. So that is how it all began for me, and I am still daily working on family history and will have many stories from my family to tell. Keep watching, and we'll see you next time on Stories by Grandma. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you. Goodbye.